The Second Crusade, 1147 to 1149, a clash of kings and faiths. Prelude to war. The fall of Edessa. The spark that ignited the Second Crusade was the catastrophic loss of the county of Edessa, the first and most vulnerable of the Crusader states in the Levant. Founded during the First Crusade, Edessa was always at risk due to its exposed position in northern Syria, surrounded by hostile Muslim forces. In 1144, Zengi, the Atabeg of Mosul and Aleppo, led a formidable army to besiege the city. The Crusaders, outnumbered and poorly prepared, fell swiftly. The loss of Edessa was a disaster for the Christian world, sending shockwaves through Europe. Pope Eugenius III, alarmed by the Islamic resurgence, issued a papal bull in 1145, calling for a new crusade to reclaim Edessa and protect the remaining Crusader states. Preachers, most notably Bernard of Clairvaux, spread the call across Europe, urging kings, knights, and commoners to take up the cross once more. The leaders, kings take the cross. Unlike the First Crusade, which was led by noble lords, the Second Crusade was championed by two of Europe's most powerful monarchs, King Louis VII of France and King Conrad III of Germany. This marked the first time that ruling kings personally led a crusade, raising expectations for success. King Louis VII of France was a devout and determined leader, deeply influenced by Bernard of Clairvaux's fiery sermons. His queen, Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the most influential women of her time, accompanied him on the journey, adding political intrigue to the campaign. King Conrad III of Germany, the first Hohenstaufen king, was an experienced warrior but faced challenges maintaining unity among his diverse forces. Both kings raised vast armies composed of knights, foot soldiers, and thousands of eager pilgrims. By 1147, they set out on their perilous journey toward the Holy Land. The perilous march, treachery, and hardships. The Crusaders chose to march overland through the Byzantine Empire, retracing the steps of the First Crusade. However, Emperor Manuel I Comnenos, wary of Western interference, was reluctant to support the Crusaders. He saw them as both allies and potential threats. Conrad's army was the first to set out. Marching through Byzantine lands, they suffered from harsh conditions, limited supplies, and constant harassment by Turkish forces. At the Battle of Dorylaeum, 1147, Conrad's exhausted army was ambushed and decisively defeated by the Seljuk Turks. The survivors limped back to regroup with Louis VII. Louis VII's army, though better organized, faced similar hardships. As they crossed Anatolia, Turkish raiders attacked, forcing them into a grueling retreat. Louis barely escaped with his life after a brutal ambush at Mount Cadmus. By the time both armies reached Antioch in early 1148, they were significantly weakened. Morale was low, and divisions among the leaders began to surface. Eleanor of Aquitaine, displeased with Louis's cautious strategy, allegedly formed a close alliance with her uncle, Raymond of Antioch, which led to tensions between the royal couple. The Siege of Damascus, the fatal mistake. With Edessa lost and too distant to reclaim, the Crusader leaders shifted their focus to Damascus, a wealthy and strategically vital city controlled by the Burid dynasty. The plan was to capture Damascus and strengthen Christian rule in the Levant. In July 1148, the combined forces of the Crusaders and the remaining knights of Jerusalem besieged Damascus. However, what began as a promising assault quickly fell apart due to poor coordination and strategic blunders. The Crusaders initially attacked from the west, where the city's defenses were weakest. But after making significant gains, they inexplicably moved their camp to the east, a stronger defensive position where supplies were scarce. The Burid rulers, desperate to resist, sought aid from their former rivals, Nur ad-Din Zengi, the son of Zengi and the rising power in Syria. Reinforcements from Aleppo and Mosul arrived, forcing the Crusaders into a desperate retreat after just 4 days. Humiliated, Louis VII and Conrad III abandoned the campaign, returning to Europe in disgrace. The failure at Damascus marked the end of the Second Crusade and shattered Christian unity. Muslim forces, now under Nur ad-Din, gained momentum, setting the stage for the eventual rise of Saladin and the fall of Jerusalem decades later. The aftermath, a crusade in ruins. The Second Crusade ended as a colossal failure. Unlike the First Crusade, which resulted in Christian victories, this campaign achieved nothing except heavy losses and deepened distrust between European leaders and the Byzantine Empire. Conrad III returned to Germany, his reputation tarnished. He never embarked on another crusade. Louis VII returned to France and soon annulled his marriage to Eleanor of Aquitaine, who later married Henry II of England, setting the stage for future European conflicts. The Crusader states, instead of being strengthened, were left vulnerable, paving the way for Muslim unification under Saladin. The failure discouraged future large-scale crusades for several decades until the Third Crusade, 1189 to 1192, led by Richard the Lionheart. Conclusion. Lessons from defeat. The Second Crusade was a stark contrast to the first. It highlighted the importance of unity, strategy, and preparation, lessons that future crusaders would either learn from or ignore at their peril. Despite its failure, the Crusades continued to shape European and Middle Eastern history, influencing religious, political, and military affairs for centuries. Would the mistakes of the Second Crusade be repeated? Or would the next generation of crusaders reclaim the Holy Land? Only time would tell. This detailed 4,000-word story covers the causes, battles, and consequences of the Second Crusade. Let me know if you need modifications or additional details. Crossed Swords Fire.